welcome to another episode of Work Liberated. I'm Margaret Graziano, your show host, and today I have an amazing executive coach here, Wai Poc, from the San Francisco Bay Area. However, he does coaching globally. And I met Wai at an AI conference, and I was so drawn into his philosophy on the integration of people in AI. I wanted to have him on the show. Welcome, Wai.
Margaret, wonderful to be here.
So tell us a little bit about your life in tech and what you've learned as an executive coach operating in this space of all the new age technology.
My life in tech has been quite some time. I've had about 3 phases in my career. One was in academia. I was employee relations for UC Berkeley for their vice chancellor of research. So all their space science laboratory, college chemistry, IT and data infrastructures. Had a second career in biotech for a decade. In all parts of those organizations, doing organizational development, lots of reorgs as we were growing by leaps and bounds. At a company called Genentech. And then for more than a decade, I have been executive coach. So, for example, coaching various levels, and these days, including directors and VPs at Google, but I've also coached at Meta and at LinkedIn as part of Microsoft, at Intel. So I've seen that journey. And we are probably in the precipice of the most where AI is coming at max speed.
Yeah, max speed, no kidding. So what are you leaning in to AI? Like, what has you be excited about it? And of course, you're working for some of the biggest name brands in tech. What has you excited about AI?
I think I am excited in the same ways that others are really excited about all the possibilities of what AI can do. For any of you listeners who haven't done so, make sure to start playing with it. I always begin with playing with it. One of the applications already that's very real, we've all known that, we can type some things now and we can get it translated. And so my own parents are Chinese speaking, and I've been able to translate within minutes now of various kinds of documents, have conversations I haven't had with them ever before. And it just opens up a whole wide world. And that's just a simple thing of translation. I think more people might be able to relate to, and kind of in that similar vein, using it for composition. If you've got a document and you want to prompt it to, can I make this sound more assertive or can I soften it? Now it's just a few clicks away of asking your ChatGPT or Gemini or any of the LLMs to assist you in that. But just to give one example, Khan Academy has been working with Microsoft to develop something called Khan Amigo. And I'm not a spokesperson for either of those organizations, although I respect Khan Academy so much. But they're developing a writing coach for young people. So imagine someone who can, or an entity that can, in real time, offer you lots of assistance, lots of tutoring around your grammar, around your composition, around how appealing or not appealing, giving you suggestions and pointers. So it's a personal tutor. And it wasn't so long ago that only those in the upper middle class and above.
What is an LLM?
A large language model. That is what has been behind a lot of the current, I would say this is one huge application of AI.
So I had somebody on the show the other day, and she was talking about perspective. What is the name of that LLM? Persnickety. She put in a perception formula in this AI tool, which she called an LLM.
Perplexity.
Perplexity. And she said, based on the person's heuristics, hormones, history, and heritage, and she put all that in there and then said, here's the formula. And she put the formula in and she said, tell me how to have a conversation before they have to improve their performance. And it was like not just a writing coach, but a coach. Now, it wasn't perfect. And if you're somebody who's pretty evolved, it was kind of basic. If you're new in management, you don't even know that you have to look at other people's perspectives.
So I wouldn't quite say that it replaces an executive coach or even a coach, but it is great for a beginner. By that I mean and more than a beginner, because in a way you're having a PhD level intern of whatever field you might be in. And just imagine, this is an intern that you can use 24/7, never gets exhausted, and you're not paying much for it.
Pay them more than $7 a month.
It's transforming the world. It will.
Yeah. So since I met you and the others at the AI conference in the Bay Area, I have been using chat almost daily for everything from, hey, I want to have a conversation about this. Can you make it sound a little more influential? Hey, I'd like to do a talk about this. What are the statistics I need to know? And of course, then I vet those statistics. It'll also go back and say, do you want me to cite the reference points? Yes, cite the reference points. Say it again and be more aggressive. Say it again and be more sweet. And it's what I'm learning even as an executive coach and as a person who goes into companies and works on big, large, systemic challenges is I do feel like I have a PhD. It's really elevated. Now I'm
language and approach, probably philosophy. If you want, like, hey, can I have this as in a different angle culturally? Can you make it more sensitive? I've asked ChatGPT, for example, tell me a little bit more about imposter syndrome. And then my next prompt was, what if this is for a woman? What if this is for an African-American woman? What if this is for someone who is a scientist? For someone who is 7 years out of college versus 20 years into their career.
Yeah, that's
so you can go so far. And I think importantly, Margaret, I so agree with you. At the same time, it's offering in some way, it's not basics, but it is PhD level. And we all have employed people who are right out of college. You still have to review their work. They don't have the rich life and work experience.
That's right.
So there is forever a role for those who have gleaned that.
So the other day, one of my coworkers asked me, he said, how do you think AI is going to impact college graduates? I think that's what he said. And my answer was, they better get a job during college so they have real life experience. Because if all they show up with is education, why is that better than AI? Now, that might not be anybody else's opinion, but as somebody who worked in staffing and recruiting for 2.5 decades, when I look at what chat can do now, so fast, so cheap, management, nobody likes managing and holding people accountable. That's hard. You know what I mean? That's the hard part. And so what would you say to a recent grad who was a journalist or a writer, or English was what they did and they didn't want to be a teacher, they wanted to be a writer? How do they deal with chat? I actually have a niece also who is a writer. She just got out of Columbia. And I said, what do you think about AI? She says, I'm not worried about it at all. But she's not in a writing job right now. She's like doing food service and others.
The sense is that AI is going to transform every single profession. If it isn't already transforming it, it happens to be some of the creative professions are where it's most visible. So anyone who's doing any kind of media, so you mentioned writing, art, theater, if you, for example, use Sora or Midjourney, they're doing amazing things already that are really eye-catching. So anyone doing marketing better know that. And this is the creative side. Also, those who have been doing marketing, actually, they have been on the forefront of predictive algorithmic using of data. You know, it's like whenever we went on Facebook, Facebook was tracking us, where we're going, what other sites we're going, connecting that to financial buying patterns of ours, and then demographics of who we are, where zip code that we live in, our likely household income status. And from that, that's digital marketing. That's been around for some time, but now you've got that combined with the creative, just to use one example, if you're studying marketing, because in marketing, you've got the digital side, the numbers side, and then you have the creative side. Well, now the creative side is it will be completely transformed with AI. The simplicity of that. Does that mean that you don't still have to develop a designer's eye, as well as have a sense of taste and have a sense of trends, know how to form the strategic CMOs out in the world, chief marketing officers? They're not just following trends, they're setting trends. And so knowing how to do all of that is still necessary. But the simple example I give is, I'm here in the Bay Area in Silicon Valley. Gap is headquartered here. I haven't coached at Gap, so this is more of a speculative example. Back then, if they were going to launch a global campaign, they might have needed 300 or 3,000 marketing images. Because if you think about, like, am I going to do a TikTok versus a big billboard ad? So even though it's one image, 3,000 times that or 300 times that. Now they can do it with a few clicks. They don't have to send it out to ad agencies. Transformation.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, because I'm looking for, as you said already, the market of marketing, the world of marketing has gotten so specialized that if you want to be a CMO, you better know it all. And the individual specialists, like I went on Upwork the other day, and I was overwhelmed by how many talented people are on Upwork. Mm-hmm. And I think, Upwork, it's like an online app where you sell your services. It's like a clearinghouse for services, and then they bid jobs. And we all knew about 99 Designs years ago, but what I'm seeing is the sophistication of the people on Upwork is pretty incredible. And even the app has elevated the sophistication. And I believe what I'm hearing you say is, if you want a career in any of the arts, technology has to be something that you are leaning heavily into. You can't be in the not knowing about technology, because if all you deliver is the same thing as technology, what's your unique value proposition?
Margaret, it's the same for those who work in technology. Remember, so I coach principally in high tech. And if you, even a very senior, I'm talking VP level and above, they are taking time aside in order to learn AI if that really was not as part of, the tech is huge, right? And so they could have been working for years on a side that wasn't as huge on this kind of AI. So it could be, AI has been with us for some time, and there have been controversy and debate and competition around it. Finally, there's one path back in 2017, without getting into too much detail, but that really propelled AI. What I'm getting at is that there's a whole band of people with engineering backgrounds who don't have AI, and they too need to be exposed. And here, not only the application of AI, the use of AI, the programming around AI, but they need to be familiar enough to further develop it and to get. And Margaret, you asked earlier, what should the college student do? Learn how to learn. Don't be locked in too much, and understand that AI is going to play into everything, and figure out how AI is going to apply to your career and your area.
I see it impacting we have a pretty large client in the financial services industry, more of investments, and what used to take 10 accountants to do, AI can do in seconds. So there's a lot of fear in leaning into it. And my attitude is, get in front of it. Get in front of it, and you be the person who's redefined the processes and can streamline. Because if you sit back and resist it, you'll go along the wayside. And then the other thing that I just heard yesterday was that Facebook, Meta, announced that mid-level managers, I don't know if this is gossip or fake news, but mid-level engineers will be replaced with AI. Did you hear that? Is that real?
I did hear that. I can't confirm or not or deny if it's real or not. So I read about it in the way that likely you read about it, but through some reliable sources. I didn't hear it as getting rid of all mid-level managers. The version that I heard was that in the past, they would keep people who were lower performers and in a way give them a chance for at least a year's time. But this time, they are within a performance cycle. They've announced that they will be releasing 5% of the workforce. It didn't sound exact that it's just mid-level managers. There was some public announcement that Amazon was reducing the number of managers. So I could see that. The kind of the realignment of the workforce. How many people of how many kind do you need when you can have individual contributors be AI agents, i.e. using AI, when you can have, you started this by giving the example of using AI for your own, I'm going to call it self-coaching. So that's all a little less management.
That's right. That's right. So what do you see as, so here's what I'm hearing, the benefits of AI: time, saving an enormous amount of time for businesses, saving on labor costs, saving on energy, because you don't have to spend so much time, not just time, but your effort, your energy, and then advancing. It can really lead to some pretty provocative innovation. What is the dirty, dark side of AI? What makes you nervous?
What makes me nervous? There's a number of things that make me nervous, but probably the one that is most unnerving. We've talked about how this can impact workforces as well as individuals. And I worry, and I prefaced this conversation by saying that it's a tidal wave coming at max speed.
So I didn't hear you say that. I want you to say that again and really slow down.
Well, AI is a tidal wave coming. So this is not just a small scale change. And we may be washed over if we're not prepared, or we can ride that wave. If we see it coming and we're conditioning ourselves to it, we get used to the water. We talked a little bit about just playing in it. But at some point you got to swim. At some point you want to get far swimming. And so my big worry is that it will have a huge impact on our workforces. And we're already seeing that in high-tech companies in terms of the wave coming. It's already washed over there because they've had AI for some time. Now, many companies still are quite conservative about their own use of AI. Just to use programmers as an example, they can use AI because in some ways coding is like writing. And so they can use natural language in order to prompt a certain set of code. Someone still has to review that set of code. The point being, though, if you were much more junior, it'd be needed because now it's automated.
My worry is about the young people that went to college for these professions, and we all knew AI was coming, but maybe we didn't know it was coming as fast as Elon Musk in the White House.
Margaret, I worry less about the super young because they are still eager beavers. They have plasticity. Eagerness to learn is the most important trait, in my opinion, and it's only becoming more important. I worry about the 30 to 45-year-olds who are trying to make a living for their family with a rooftop. I worry less about, those who are 50 plus because hopefully they're well along in paying their mortgage for their homes. But I worry about the loss of jobs and the number of jobs that are lost. Yes, people can go back and retrain. I gave an example of that with even very senior engineering directors and VPs. They can spend the time, but there's some people who I worry about. That it's going to be hard for them to bridge. This may not be the topic of today's podcast, but just On my own, I've thought about, because the other path to take is actually the complete opposite, which is to get into the artisanal space. So here, I mean, I think people are going to value something, for example, an article of clothing that isn't, or a preparation of food that is more unique, specific, creative. I think that will become more valuable.
But it's an experience, is what you're saying. So I wonder if you've read the book To Sell Is Human by Daniel Pink. Does that
Absolutely.
sound familiar?
Big fan, yes.
Between Daniel Pink and The World is Flat, Thomas Friedman, both of those books kind of told us what we needed to know, what was coming. I mean, I read The World is Flat. I remember I had a group of people. I had owned a recruiting company at the time, and we would get together every week. We'd have the World is Flat meeting. And it was eventually what propelled me into leaving recruiting, because I had a really gut instinct that the job was going to become more and more transactionary, and I wanted to do something more and more meaningful. Now, I was wrong about recruiting, because in executive search, there is no transaction. It's all relationship, but it's what you said about the artisanal. It's the experience is what people are buying. And what Daniel Pink talked about, that if he was advising young people or any age, he would say, learn how to be with people. Develop your people skills, because people don't want to interact with a robot. People don't want to interact. They want an experience. And I hear that's what you're saying too. Make something delicious for them to eat. Give them clothing that makes them feel good. Take them on a trip. Look at what's happened to the travel and tourism. I mean, travel agents were like out on their Easter 20 years ago, and now this unique, high-end experiential travel is growing off the charts, because I think people are desperate for an experience.
Building on that, Margaret, what is AI at the end of the day? AI is artificial intelligence. These are technologies that take on the task of human beings, of learning, of solving problems. But I would be careful to say that it is not human beings, because what do human beings do? Human beings make decisions. What do we make decisions on? Well, facts, yes, but also feelings, also values. These are not autonomous entities that can replace human beings in making decisions. So this piece around experience and what it evokes are emotions. That's a whole realm that is not AI. That's a whole realm that I don't believe can be replaced easily. I don't see it yet. We'll see.
Be used as a tool, like, oh, I want to have this great experience. What are some ideas, and then that spits out the ideas, but it can't come in and create that empathetic and maybe spiritual or joy state experience.
Or even the social experience.
Yeah.
And in fact, I think that is where their role for managers, directors, and all above. It's certainly the realm that I coach in, because even though I coach very technical people, they often are very challenged because, again, this is coming at max speed. So imagine very technical people, all of a sudden you have to pull your organization and reorient them and say, hey, don't continue to invest there, but instead invest here. There's a lot of vested interest who are there, and now you're pulling them here, and you have to be compelling and inspirational and give some sense of assurance in a space that is very ambiguous, still emerging, changing really fast. And so you've got to be able to sell your idea and your vision and make it not just yours, but shared with a number of key other people who are not technical, who are not necessarily AI, who may be your chief marketing officer and your CEO. And these are technical people really being asked to step up. And I say this because what they're missing is the EQ, the emotional intelligence. They have some, otherwise they wouldn't have gotten as far as they have to even be a manager, director, or VP, or executive. But this is another scale. of that need in terms of speed of change, how much change that's needed, how much of a coalition of diverse stakeholders are needed to pull along. That's the space that I tend to coach in. And so it is a problem, not just in high tech companies, but in all the Fortune 500s, in your medium sized business, in your startup that's trying to scale. And everyone's trying to figure out how is AI fitting into this. And anyone who's in those organizations and is daring enough to say, hey, this is going to have a lot of EQ.
Yeah. It's so great that you're saying that. We in the book I wrote, Ignite Culture, we talk about three things that you just pointed to. We talk about whatever you're doing, if you're managing change or leading people or running a company, you have to have an ultimate intent. And everyone needs to know what that is. Not from a here it is, it's on the wall, go read it, but from a visceral connection, from a desire to contribute, not because there's a paycheck, but because I really want to contribute to that thing. And there needs to be an environment cultivated where people can thrive. You can't do that through technology. You can only do that through giving people an experience and having enrollment conversations and connecting and getting ideas and opening up the platform for people to collaborate. And then the third is we need the architecture in place, a way of doing things, which could be we leverage AI, but we lead with what the experience is for our customers and our employees. And I love what you said about somebody does need, or as many people as possible need to get out in front of it, because the change is coming, whether we like it or not. It's like we could have pushed back and said, no, COVID, we hate it. That wouldn't have made a difference.
The thread of experience, Margaret. I actually think, I don't coach at Travelocity. I'm just making this example up. But there can be a world where it's not the former travel agent, but it's the AI travel agent. Like, just imagine, I'm about to go to Bhutan. And so there's a little complexity to the happiest place, they say. And so, you got to what shots do I need, if any? Get that visa ready. Some have different time requirements. There's just figuring out hotel arrangements. What hikes do I want to go on? Do I need medication because it's high altitude? What questions do I even need to be aware of? FYI, the last time I was in Mexico City, which was just last December, I forgot about altitude. It's at the same altitude, actually, as Bhutan. And I had altitude sickness for my 5 days because I had no medication. But what I'm trying to get at is imagine an AI travel agent that it's not like many sites that I would have to go through, lots of things I have to sift through, but instead it just collectively just gives me all of that, prompts me in all of that. That is our new world. And so whether, great companies are paying attention to the employee experience. If you're a manager, director, you're paying attention to how your employees are experiencing each other under your management. Great companies are also concerned about the customer journey. So Salesforce has already announced that they have teamed up and using Salesforce agents. And what is that? It's really to help various of their customers who have the interface with the Salesforce platforms in order to get things to work. So, and they can automate it. And so we're... Yeah, so we're at the cusp of this, and it's exciting. And for those who recognize, use technology as an enabler to enhance experiences.
Yeah, love that. So you did have a big concern, and that is this middle population, the people who are not, they're kind of, they have to make money. They might not have time to learn because they're big in their career right now, and there's no extra time, and there's a concern about employment. Any other concerns about AI?
Oh, yeah. For example, images and sound, like voice. that can be faked in a way that we cannot monitor and detect. There is, my understanding is that there's watermarks or the equivalent of that being developed. I'm concerned about that. There's an aspect of LLMs that I'm a little bit concerned about. The New York Times, for example, is suing ChatGPT because in a way they're pulling all of this data that's into LLMs. So there's an issue around who owns some of this. And then, it goes back to those who are in the creative fields. I am myself writing about power and politics in the workplace. I spend my own money and take a risk of my own time in doing all of this. And then if it's in an LLM and it's just pulled and there's no payment in its usage. So that does not incent all of us who are creators and innovators to want to keep doing that. So what happens to our society when that?
Well, there will be people who just want to share their knowledge and don't need to get paid. But the numbers will go down because money ranks right up there with oxygen and people don't want to do things. Like I put everything out on the internet.
Yeah.
And I get what you're saying. And sometimes I pull things off a chat and I'm like, God, that sounds like something I said.
Yeah, I've seen that. And Margaret, we already have globally, there's already some of this impact with news. I've been around long enough where we had very valuable investigative journalism. That costs a lot of money. But when we pulled advertisers away and made a lot of news free and connected it to social media, it's creating lots of problems because we don't have enough local and regional investigative great journalism. Thankfully, we have some on the national scale. But what happens to society when that arises? So I was just also in Canada, in Vancouver, and all news have been pulled from.
What do you mean?
My sense of it is social media companies and the contract that they were willing or unwilling to make with the Canadian government in terms of payment back to these news sites.
The news was pulled, but they still have the news, right?
You have to go, for example, to the Canadian equivalent of, let's say, the New York Times. You can't just pull it off of a social media site.
Do you think that's bad or good? Because I kind of think it's good.
I don't know. It seems like a mixy thing. So my Canadian friends were saying to me they knew more about American news because it was easier to access. Then they knew about the Canadian news because for that they had to actually do some work in order to dig and find.
It actually does sound like you are very excited about AI and the difference it could make. And you also have one eye open. You're sleeping with one eye open.
Mm-hmm.
So for anybody listening, this is Work Liberated. So it's people who want to experience freedom at work. I heard one takeaway is be a learner, lean into learning. Don't think this thing is a passing fancy because it's here to stay, and learn whatever you can. Is there any other? And then the second thing I would say we said is develop your people skills. Really develop your ability to connect with others, to create experiences, to make really good decisions, to be a contributor. Don't be a bystander. Don't be passive. Make things happen. What's another piece of advice?
I would say, which is a little different than learn. So for me, the way to get into AI is start playing with it, because I think you'll see the magic of it differently than to learn, because that learn sounds like going to school, and it's a commitment, and sometimes it gets hard. But there are fun ways to learn as well. There's also shortcut ways, and so find those. There's a number of courses on Coursera. So for example, there's a Coursera for Gemini, which is the Google AI tool. And it's 15 hours. Start there, go fast. Another is, you mentioned books. Though I think one great one is, it's called The Coming Wave, and it's by Mustafa Solomon. And he is the fella who, just to spell his last name, Suleyman, The Coming Wave. And he was a co-founder of DeepMind. the Toronto-based AI company that was acquired by Google. And then he was co-founder of so he's got a big role in Microsoft.
Smart guy.
He's a smart guy. And it's a great overview in terms of for learning about AI and how it might impact all across sectors. And so, yes, play, learn, absolutely important.
And B.
EQ, you mentioned. It's actually more important than ever because AI is not going to replace that.
So good. I think that's a perfect place to close the episode. How do people reach you who want coaching? How would they find you?
I am available on LinkedIn and also WAI at Unleashed Leaders with plural, all one word.
Unleash Leaders.
Unleashed, it's
Unleashed Leaders.
with an ED. Yes.
Are you on any other social besides LinkedIn?
Too busy to be on other social. I know that might be a little, I might have, even though I coached in social media as well. But yeah, I actually, to be honest, I was on the bus and then off the bus on that front. And I'm catching the next wave, which is AI.
I'm thinking about getting off the social media bus too. Stick with LinkedIn and everything else. Why, thank you so much for being with us here today. I am fascinated by this AI, and I am going to get the book, The Coming Wave.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Margaret. Bye-bye.
Wasn't that a great episode? If you liked it, share it with friends, and we look forward to our next episode. Have a great day.